So what I'm about to talk about here is a little bit less of a specific. I'm going to cite this source and talk about what I found here, and cite this source and talk about the data here. And it's going to be more, hi baby. It's going to be more of, just my, maybe some sources in the description, and a bit more of me just talking about, from a sociological perspective, and as not like a trained scientist, but just somebody who has a deep interest in the interconnectedness of, lakes and rivers and water systems and human behaviors, that kind of thing. So, and my main focus is the Colorado River, but I want to talk about how this is actually a national issue and, to some extent a global issue as well. And it will take a little bit of, there might be some cognitive load involved with this for you, the viewer, the mind who is on the other side of the screen, to expand ways of thinking beyond maybe what has previously been available. And maybe at times I actually think that this is, like beyond what is comfortable. And so I apologize for any discomfort that you experience. And I hope that this, doesn't come across as preachy, but rather just comes from a, that you can see that this comes from a place of genuine love and concern for all of us, and I don't have kids, I'm not gonna have my own children, but this is your children, this is your children's future, this is your grandchildren's future. Hi, honey. Okay. Yes. All right. Very nice. Oh, okay. Are you up here? Very good. Okay. So, it kind of starts with this. There's a severe drought in, do you want to get down? Are you trapped? Okay. There's a severe drought in Colorado. He probably wants to hunt. That tail flicking means I'm bored. But let's see if I can get some stuff out here first. And this severe drought in Colorado is impacting the Colorado River. A river that's, 7 states, 30 tribal nations, and parts of Mexico rely heavily on for agriculture and household use. The 7 states are, and this is off the top of my head, New Mexico, Colorado, California, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and Wyoming. And I was sidewalk talking about this issue yesterday. There was a concert as a part of Morgan Wallen's Still the Problem tour. So there was a show at Empower Field on the 29th and 30th of May 2026. And the first day, I was told that I wasn't allowed to sidewalk chalk on the property and that I had to go off the property And then they tried to convince me, oh, you'll probably catch more attention and more people over there anyway. Yeah, right. The people walking to the stadium are not nearly as bored and looking for information and something to distract themselves from the boredom of waiting in line as the people in line outside the stadium who have time to look at the chalk messages and look at the grass that's right there that I'm talking about. But, I said, okay, fine, I'll go away. And I walked further away, and there were less crowds. There were a lot of people who parked in the parking lots that weren't going to walk past what I had to say to them. So I went a little bit closer than I was, just to the edge of the property. And I was told again, you were told, you're not allowed to speak freely here. Go do your stuff elsewhere. Democracy. Okay. And then they told me that they were using water. I mean, my thing is water use. So they were saying, we're using water to spray all of your messages right after you're done writing them. And that's on you. And I turned around and I yelled at the man, nope, that's on you. You making that decision to use water to get rid of this stuff, if it was really that harmless, then, you could leave it. But there's something here where you know that I'm right. And so you need to get rid of it so that there's no trace, so that people aren't thinking, so that people just go, have their booze, buy a t-shirt, watch a show, go home feeling really satisfied with themselves. And one of the messages that I wrote was, this grass needs to stay green to maintain the illusion that all is well in Colorado. And this was shorter. I don't know exactly what I wrote. And I couldn't get a picture because security was pushing me away. But, it was essentially this. Have to keep the grass lawns green for tourists and TVs, And another thing was, how is this a good use of resource to have green grass? And just above that area, there are trees and flowers and all of that. Why can't that just be implemented all over? All over. They could have food there. All of these parks could be places where food grows for people, or at least some of them could be edible food gardens. And there are examples of this starting to crop up around the world. So it's like, it exists, it's possible. It's just a matter of us saying the status quo isn't it. But they sprayed my messages with water. They told me that I was responsible for the waste of water. And I said, that's on you. That's on you. And then yesterday, so that was on the 29th, yesterday on the 30th, I was on public sidewalks doing my same messaging. The Antero Reservoir has been drained, or is being drained, which means no recreation, no fishing, and no camping for the rest of 2026, possibly longer. It might just be a year, we have to see, but it could be multiple years that reservoir remains drained, and that they keep it empty and say no recreation here. This has impacts, economic impacts, as well as lifestyle impacts on the communities that rely on that reservoir to go and sail a boat and do a little fishing or kayaking, whatever they do there. I know fishing and camping, but there's got to be more that place offers, and now it's closed. And as that reservoir drains, that entire region becomes a little bit drier, increasing the risk of wildfire because there's less evaporation happening in that region. How does that impact Colorado economically? I don't have the data on this, but it doesn't take a lot of thought to see the common sense here. I think. I know, we'll do some hunting soon, okay? And then as the river drains, I mean, we're talking about millions of people, tens of millions of people across 7 states. When we go to turn on our faucets and there's not water for many of us, where do you think we're gonna go? We're gonna bombard Texas and Kansas and Tennessee and Alabama and Louisiana and Portland, or that's a city, Oregon and Washington. Yes, baby. Yes, honey. Okay. So this is something that affects all US citizens. And the choices of US citizens and people around the world are impacting the water sources around the world. The bleach containers, the liquid shampoo and liquid detergents, all of these take water from a closed loop system. And I looked this up. The water that we're getting, any water that comes in on meteorites from space and any water that evaporates out of our atmosphere and kind of goes into the ethers of the vacuum of space, are relatively negligible. We have a closed loop system, meaning that matter remains consistent in terms of water on this planet, and energy can affect the water, but it does not, by and large, remove matter from the system. So you can compare this to a pot of water with a lid on it. Heat can enter and the water will do what it does. But no water is leaving because it's got a lid on it. Now, what happens if we start taking water out of that pot and just putting it in a different pot? At some point, the pot that is on the boiling, the boiler plate, it's gonna be burned through. There's not any water in there. And that's kind of what we're going through. We have only so much water. And when we bottle it and we put it in grocery stores, I understand the sentiment. I understand where it comes from, wanting people to be able to have access to water to drink and bring to their homes so that they can have water. And there are ways that we could move towards taking care of the rivers so that it doesn't take so much effort to make things like the South Platte River water drinkable. Right now, most parts of it have so much E. coli in it that if you go swimming, you'll be shitting blood within a few days. Now, I fell into that river not long ago, and luckily it was a part of the river where trout are able to survive. Baby. Ducks are there. I even saw a beaver gnawing on some trees, getting ready to make a dam. Is that okay? You like it? Okay. Thank you for letting me give you pats, baby. And so, yeah, our decisions to buy liquid detergent, they're a part of it. Our decision to buy liquid shampoo and conditioner is a part of it. Because if all that water was out in the world, it would be in the trees. It would be in plants that are right now dying because they don't have enough water. And all of that would help cool this, cool stuff down. So that not so much is evaporating, more is on the earth. more is held in the things that we want to be able to eat and admire: the wildflowers, the trees. And if we keep going the way that we're going, it's just, it's not sustainable. And the river is already over allocated. Dams are losing power. Those dams are run by US citizens. And when we don't have electricity, where are we gonna go? We're gonna go to Montana and Minnesota. We're gonna go to New York and Massachusetts. Are your schools ready for us? Are your cities ready for us? Better get them ready. And I think about a lot of things. I've got a lot of stuff going on here in my mind. Stuff about unhoused people, people starving, people who don't have access to water. They go into a place and say, "Can I get a cup of water?" And it's like, are you gonna buy something? Then no, you can't have tap water. Get out. And I've seen that happen. I've also seen people say, "Have some water." I'm not gonna say no. And those are individual choices. Even if there's a camera looking, it's an individual choice. To get on a bike with a gun at your hip and say, "This is just what I'm doing. This is what they say I gotta do." You're an individual, and you have the ability to say, "No, actually, the chalk doesn't warrant a gun." Somebody's speaking freely wherever it is. It's not permanent damage. I didn't take spray paint cans or buckets of paint, because those have all kinds of toxins and aerosol and this and that. I'm not trying to put that into the earth and spend money on it, making people think that that's what I want. No, I'll get my non-toxic, washable sidewalk chalk, and I'll use it to say what I have to say. Because it does less harm to the environment, and the environment is something that we all share. Your choices are something that impacts every single choice that you make, is something that impacts the environment and the people around you. Every single choice. And if it's overwhelming, make less choices. Make less things options. When I walk past the chip aisle in the grocery store, most of the time, like 90% of the time, 95% of the time, I say, "That's not an option. I don't even get to look." Then 50% of the time when I go down there, so this is like 5% of the time that I'm at the grocery store, or 10% of the time that I'm at the grocery store, maybe 50% of the time I walk down the aisle and I think about the waste of the bag and what that stuff is gonna do for my body, do to my body, really. And I say, "Nope. No. And I just keep it moving. And I walk to the produce and I get some stuff like kale, broccoli, peppers, whatever. And that's what I do. Most of the time, I am cutting choices out of my life and saying, these are no longer options. This choice is no longer an option. And so I look at the few things that I do have, to choose from. And I'm able to put so much more thought and energy into those few choices that I allow myself. in terms of technology and social media and that kind of thing. I have my fan going right now. At some point when the sun reaches a certain level, I'm gonna open my window, and even when it's 75, 77 degrees outside, when the sun passes a certain point in Colorado, I have learned that the sun provides so much heat that the shady area instantly cools off. Like, immediately gets cooler. So if I open my window, even if it's 80 degrees outside, if there's enough shade outside, like this is the wall, this is the roof, the sun's over there. So here's all this shade, like this angle, right? And so once there's enough shade here, the air will cool off enough that it'll be like 60 degrees or 70 degrees or whatever. And then I can open my window and save my air conditioning from having to work so hard. That is what it is. And there were people, I mean, this is ancient Roman technology, that they were like, oh, we could have windows that block the sun but allow the air to come in, and be in tune enough with natural patterns to have cooling systems for entire cities where the streets themselves are air vents. And you're gonna tell me, with all the technology we have, we're not doing that? We're not gonna implement that? But I do my best on an individual level to do that. To turn off my lights. Yeah, they're all off. And I'm going to bed earlier now, and I wake up closer to when the sun rises, so that I'm not using my lights at 2 o'clock in the morning to read a book, or even 11 p.m. to get ready for bed and read a book and do that. Having this kitten who needs eye drops and oral liquid medication, let me tell you something, not easy. But I've learned, and I'm learning still. And because of him, I get in bed at like 10 o'clock. And I keep the lights dim. I mean, my lights are already energy saving, but I turn them down a good amount so that there's just way less stimulation inside the environment. And not only is it way less stimulation, it's a huge chunk less energy that's being used. And I said this in a post somewhere. I think it's on my website, in my blog, Beyond a Reasonable Drought, that when I can, when I think of it, I avoid the elevator. Even sometimes I'll push the button and I say, wait, that was an automatic response. I'm taking the stairs to save energy. Because I'm young and able-bodied, and 1 or 2 flights of stairs is fucking cake for me. And every time I use the stairs, I tell my muscles and my joints, this is strength that we need. If I'm carrying bags of grocery or a package or whatever, I'm telling myself, this is energy that we need. We need the ability to do this. And then I get a little tired and I say, my body needs food that will fuel me. Not just fill my stomach, but that will give me strength to go walk 5 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles, whatever it is, to the park that I'm trying to get to. And when I have this little guy now, I have to take an Uber just for the sake of his stress levels. More than just his comfort, but his literal health and safety. It's not good for me to walk with him, this little kitten, over a 4-lane, well, it's really 4-lane one way, I guess, 3 or 4 lane one way and 3 or 4 lanes the other way. So 6 to 8 lane highway that's constantly got traffic going up and down it. It is not great on his ears, on his heart. So I'll take the car. And then, I'll sit there and I'll say, less cars for me as an individual, that's fine. I can give it up. And as I, do the Uber pet thing and the Lyft pet, and whatever pet options are out there, maybe more people will say, oh, I could make more money. There's more demand for this. Let me lay down whatever in my car and, make it possible for other people. I mean, what if that was just the norm, that every single car was a car that you could bring your pet in? Cats and dogs would get used to each other in the parks. It wouldn't be such an anomaly. And if you've got a pet with a specific thing going on, then as a city, as a society, we could figure that out collectively. I don't know exactly what those solutions are. I'm only one person. But our connection to our pets, when that suffers, are we going to be willing to put so much care into the thought of wild animals? When we put our relationship with our dog or our bird or our turtle on the back burner, how much are we going to care about that cat in the street, the dog in the street, the birds just flying around doing their thing, the fish in the river, the beavers that are they rely on us to make responsible choices. So hold your partner close. Hold your children close. Love them fiercely. Your pet, really your animal familiar. In my mind, that's what this kitten is. He's not just a pet. He is a piece of me, and we are tethered. Hold your familiar close. Your friends, and the earth, the soil. Go out and touch it. If you live by a river, dip your feet in it and just stop. When you hear birdsong, pause and hold those songs close to your heart. You don't have to do this. This is just my suggestion. And look at all of the products around your house. Think about how much water is being held. And not just the water, because it's mixed with stuff that will kill you if you consume it. If it touches your skin, it irritates. Think about all that stuff. And I think about it. I've been thinking about it. Man, oh man, have I been thinking about it. To the point where it's more important for me to get this out to you than almost anything in the world. And I said this before, but I think it bears repeating. T.S. Eliot has a poem. It's called Four Quartets. And each of these quartets has 5 sections of poems to them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the first grouping of poems And the last section of the fourth group, Little Getting, I don't remember what the first group of poems is called, but they have this similar energy. That the beginning is the end. That we end at the beginning and that we start at the end. That these two things are one. And there is this present moment, and it is the union between the past and the future. When you look at the word earth and you look at the word heart, that H is all you got to move to the beginning or the end. And if you start with your heart, you're ending with the earth. And you start with the earth, you're ending with your heart. And either way you slice it, that fact remains. I don't think that's a coincidence. For all the English speakers, I don't think that's a coincidence. And yeah, you can't spell rain without, you can't spell brain without rain. And you also need a letter B. B, rain, brain. We've got to learn to flow and learn to let it go. Just like I've done what I needed to do. So I say goodbye to you. Peace, love, and light. Get free.